basically, this opera is about the year that Oscar Wilde spent in the United States in 1882, from early January 1882 through November. If you didn't know that happened, you're not the only ones, and we've been learning so much about this. And the reason why he came, the background, is that the theater impresario, Richard D'Oyly Carte, which some of you may know if you're Gilbert and Sullivan dorks, he was the producer of all of Gilbert and Sullivan's operettas as they first came out, and the most contemporaneous one was called Patience, which was about the aesthetic movement. And aestheticism was about art for art's sake and enjoying the beauty of nature. Patience kind of took the piss out of aestheticism. Apparently, Gilbert met Wilde at a party, and he hated him. And he said, he said something along the lines of if I had your gift of language, I would keep my mouth shut and call it a virtue, which I would take as a cue to weep into the sponge cake and slink away. But Wilde immediately retorted, yes, I could deny myself the pleasure of speaking, but would never deny others the pleasure of listening to them. So D'Oyly Carte had a production of Patience in New York City, but they were very worried that Americans, being dumb, that we wouldn't know what aestheticism was, and they were like, let's get Oscar Wilde to go and basically be a sandwich guy for this thing. Tell people about aestheticism. More on that in a minute. But what you're going to see, and what was one of the reasons that he really felt the need to do something, was that at this point in his life, he hadn't done anything. He had written one little book of poems. None of the things we know about him had happened. No plays, no Dorian Gray, nothing at all. In fact, he'd written one play called Vera. Has anyone seen that play? Exactly. We're about to find out why. So as we frame our piece, it's going to be, you'll be seeing a snippet of the play Vera, as if it's like a rehearsal read-through that Wilde's in. And the logical response to this play is part of the catalyst that will send Wilde to the United States, and you can imagine him like on a boat, like, Kate Winslet or Celine Dion sailing to the United States. Without further ado, here's our fabulous cast with the first number, which is a snippet from Vera and the song sung by Stephanie as Blythely Oratonio, as Oscar Wilde.
Oh, love, be merciful to me. The wolves are hot upon you. You must live for liberty, for Russia, for me. Oh, you do not love me. You offered me an empire once. Give me this dagger now. Oh, you are cruel. My life for yours, what does it matter?
Vera! Vera! To the rescue! To the rescue!
The bitterness of death is past for me.
Oh, they are breaking in below. See the bloody man behind you.
Long live the people! Long live the people!
What have you done?
I have saved Russia.
Well, it stinks.
Poseidon is wailing, the salt cuts like blades in the air. Atlantic Ocean is yawning at the moon's lonesome longing. London fades in a fog of despair. Oh, England, you're the wastrel, but in the end at least he died content. Put your faith in others, you're left to wonder where the money went. Reflection is a refuge, caught out in a deluge of sorrow and unanswered prayer. To love oneself is the beginning of a love affair. Just the beginning of a lifelong love affair. Not having set the world quite on fire, I aimed for stars and landed somewhere between the muck and mire. Not having set the world quite on fire, they shrug you off as cobalt when you know you're sapphire. They mistook me for Messias when I'm Apollo on the golden lyre. I'm gonna hit the Hudson like a tidal wave in San Jose. She's back on Tite Street, then kiss my ascots and my velvet bows. You fear that shifting power will wreck your ivory tower from which you love to gloat. When the Atlantic doesn't dare to roar anymore, then someone's gotta rock the boat. I will not waste away like objet on the shelf. I spare his punches. I know someone I will make a name for myself. If it's the last goddamn thing I do, and if my name does not shine like the glorious sun, blazing in our skies of blue, if I can make a name like the glorious sun, a notorious one will do. Not having set the world quite on fire, I aimed for stars and landed somewhere between the muck and mire. Not having set the world quite on fire, they shrug you off as cobalt when you know you're sapphire. And like Apollo, I'm the skin alive. All who have evoked my eye, I have heard them praise. He can turn a phrase faster than any other boy has ever done. My wit is sharp and my aim is sure, and they repay my craft by rag caricature. But alas and alack, Punch Magazine's favorite punchline is punching back. Maybe I'm damned to languish in Belshazzar's feast, casting my precious pearls before anodyne's wine. I float in the floods of a flame that might have been the stain of a failure I'm fighting to get clean. I see in the mirror a fabulous failure I'm forced to recall. When a hand from heaven scrawls words of flame on the wall, and there on the stone I can read Oscar Wilde, Oscar Wilde, emblazoned, to set the world on fire, set the world on fire, on fire.
So for our second number, the second number is called D'Oyly Carte Co, and it it's slightly bit of a flashback in the sequence of things. And in this scene, we have James singing the role of Richard D'Oyly Carte, the impresario of all these theatrical goings on. And he's pitching to a group of like theater bookers. It's sort of like NAMPT or something. And he's trying to like book Oscar Wilde in people's theaters to give lectures. Carrington is playing Colonel Morse, who was D'Oyly Carte's right-hand man and ended up being Wilde's agent. And Colonel Morse is speaking to a bunch of press agents, but he's working a different angle. So while D'Oyly Carte is trying to class it up with like the bookers, Colonel Morse is trying to be like a National Enquirer, gossip monger to like tell everyone that they got to come see what a freak Oscar Wilde is. And then Lucy is singing the role of Helen Lenoir, who was D'Oyly Carte's secretary and later wife. And she's speaking to Wilde, trying to convince him to come to America and class up the joint. D'Oyly Carte Co.
Mesdames et messieurs, gentlemen and curs, are you at your wits' ends in this avalanche of trends? Is this fashionable madness in goodness or in badness to be lauded or reviled? As Oscar Wilde, Gilbert and Sullivan, they make great fun. Aesthetic renaissance with their new show patience from D'Oyly Carte Co. He'll reveal all that chickering hall, all the oldest oddities, aesthetic high praise from D'Oyly Carte Co. That through the haze, the new aesthetic craze, gals in wasteless dresses, guys with flowing tresses, come and get a peek at the latest breed of freak. He claims to be a man. If you can, who can steer you through this the giddiness and sadness, the fashionable madness? It's D'Oyly Carte Co. Wrist willy-nilly, just like a lily, winding the hour like a sunflower at D'Oyly Carte Co.
Entertainment is a snore. We've seen it all before. Phony hawkers, kooky spirit knockers. The U.S. needs direction, an artistic insurrection. They can't tell a Grecian from a spittoon or a cistern.
So Wilde has now sailed to America. The SS Arizona has docked by Staten Island. I don't know why. And they have to wait 48 hours for quarantine. Meanwhile, quite a hubbub has arisen, and a bunch of journalists are waiting at the dock to meet him and interview him. And this is an American invention, the interview. So he's not really familiar with what is about to befall him. And the journalists are deciding to be a little bit intrepid and break quarantine in order to get a jump on the story. So we meet a group of journalists, and then they'll board the ship and meet Oscar Wilde. This song is called Oscar Docking.
Must they go so slow?
Or indeed, what left until tomorrow?
Then perhaps we ought to wait.
Tomorrow will be too late.
Then pick up an oar and let's row.
Quarantine, perhaps we should go.
Don't untie this oar, it's it, please.
Or we're likely to catch his beauty disease.
I heard his face is clean.
I heard that he has tusks. I heard that they are green.
His poetry's obscene.
You've read it?
Give me some credit.
Then let's row.
Our morning sleep, and rode across the bay, defying quarantine, to step aboard the ship.
To meet the
Who waits for leaving Oscar Wilde?
Rolled up at the captain's table, ensconced in coats of steel and sable.
He's a burly candy man.
But the way to the ship he tied should have lashed him to the bowsprit on the windward side. Here's Mr. Wilde standing 6 foot 3, broad shoulders swabbing as he can be.
He's a lily length and
He seems to float in his bolster coat, which jumped out to his feet. Mr. Wilde, what brought you to the land of the free? I came because I thought America was the best place to see.
Mr. Wilde, can you define aestheticism?
Aestheticism is the beautiful search for what is beautiful. It uncovers ugliness uncowed by strife. In short, it's the search for the meaning of life, attempting to color in the mundane with what's unaffected, lovely, and sane.
He smiles the height of elegance, not like the tusk protuberance in a wood portrait.
Turban cap, blue cravat, curl down his chest, ironic in his way.
Dare I say Where is your movement going to end, Mr. Wilde? I have used the word Renaissance, you see, for those who look askance at me, as though I claim to have invented beauty, which of course has got no start or end, and yet malnourished men are starving for it. that they cannot find their own beauty. So for my own part, I do not mind the envy of the unhappy blind. Souls who make a catechism of mocking aestheticism.
Something I'm tired about the chin.
But weak around the jaw.
Speaking wise, supper betrayed, honor unconstrained, as he lays on beauty's wall.
Laughing ha ha ha.
I don't see the draw.
What time do you like to rise?
Slightly after I open my eyes.
Do you like your eggs fried on both sides or only one?
I don't condone an egg I can outrun. What temperature do you like your bath? Next you'll ask to hear my girlish laugh.
I was told you always had the water lightly colored with triple essence of verbena.
I won't confess without a subpoena.
Do you trim your fingernails in the style of the Empress of Japan?
I'm afraid I've never met the man.
What is aestheticism?
Aestheticism. I have defined it about 200 times since last night. And as I said before, there is beauty all around us. Even here. Everywhere.
For instance, where is the beauty in that striking grain elevator, which is the chief object in New Jersey's landscape across the river there?
There's a New Jersey?
Yes, just across the river there.
I'm afraid I'm too nearsighted to see the object in question. I shall examine some other day and make note of it. I say, Porter, handle that box more carefully, will you?
Have you anything else to declare?
Nothing except my genius.
A pagan and filial man.
In the grave, young man.
Our next selection introduces a key character in Wilde's journey throughout the United States, which is his valet, who was a black man, and we don't know his name, despite how well documented this whole journey was. Sadly, this person's specific details have been lost to time for not unsurprising reasons. And James will be singing the role of the valet. We also are going to see Helen Lenoir and Colonel Morse scoop Wilde up off the boat and take him to Delmonico's for lunch, and then introduce him to the swirling, glittering world of the New York glitterati, where he will meet the upper echelons of society befeted and undermined, as you shall see in our song, Light Me Up, New York.
And so, in the latest of a series of questionable moves, I've traded one city for another, I said farewell to Chicago, that old virago, whose only employment opportunities, despite 4 years of Frederick Douglasses and Madame Bovary's, were Dockback or hot butchery. Thanks very much, but not for me. So I followed up a lead my brother's girlfriend had, to assist some Irish writer lad. No one you've heard of, but money is money, money is money. And with expenses paid, I can do as I please, as long as I remember to lift from the knees.
We'll keep you in comfort as best as we can. We'll also make you to your hip. We shall carry the valley for the length of your stay. We'll carry bags that you won't need to tip.
It's gonna be one heck of a trip. Now is the winter of my discontent, made glorious by the sun of New York. The crime and the gilding on those 10-story buildings got me shaking like a tuning fork. I'm just about to pop my cork. What would Twisted Richard have made of this roar that half made up in veteran rain? Would the Duke of Gloucester make it on the social roster of the town of which he is the namesake? Or would he be denounced as a fake? Light me up, New York. Leave me spent and jack up my rent so you can spin me round, New York. You build up my endurance just to torture for endurance. You can start from scratch when you light up a match. So light me up, New York.
When you've got the crumble of ram on your side, you can play it up to the hilt.
We, the critical praises, will sing out your praises, but we wouldn't want the assholes to wilt.
And don't expect the Vanderbilt.
Light me up, New York.
Leave me spent.
And jack up my rent so you can spin me round, New York. You build up my endurance just to torture for insurance, but you can start from scratch when you light up a match. So light me up, New York.
I was swarmed by horrible reporters and turned my back on them.
There, you have made a mistake, Mr. Wilde. If you come to America, you must recognize the interviewer is a powerful institution. You represent him so much capital. His business is to interview, the same as it is yours to lecture. If you don't speak to him, he must earn his money all the same, and will write something which is certainly not likely to be complimentary.
A wave of his glove or a flash of his cane, the ladies are completely enthralled.
If I get this bed for a lock of my hair, my secretary's practically bald, and her husband's a rightfully gold.
Mr. Wilde, I'm simply at my wit's end. I purchased the most elegant Japanese screens, but I haven't a clue where to place them.
My dear lady, why place them at all? Why not just let them occur?
tower. A tower is a bit on the nose. So trading that Plantagenet rose for a banquet at Delmonico's. Light me up, New York. Say be spent and jack up my rent so you can spin me round to New York. Say build up my endurance just to touch you for insurance.
This next song is a fragment of a larger song in process. It's called Manor of Speaking, which is what our show is called. And it gives you a little glimpse into our pun. I guess it's just a pun. But in this song, we hear Oscar Wilde's interiority, remembering his heritage of language as an Irishman, and we hear the echoing voice of his mother, Speranza, who was a firebrand Irish poet who was a great proponent for Irish home rule. In this song, Jess will be singing Speranza, and Stephanie as Blythely as Oscar will sing Manor of Speaking.
The Speranza filled Marion Square with language tales of fairies, literary luminaries, metaphor, hyperbole, alliteration, synecdoche. Fairies swap their band for ours, have a creaking, and Speranza turned our house into a manner of speaking, a manner of speaking.
Tune in next week for more of that song. So our next song is called Aperture. And if, as anyone in PR or any performers know, nobody's nobody unless you have a picture of yourself. And the best way to show your status in 19th century New York was to have your photograph taken by a gentleman called Napoleon Sarony, who will be sung by Sean Patrick Doyle. And if you like using your imagination, you could picture him with a giant handlebar mustache and a fez, which was Sarony's signature look. Sarony also had a huge loft full of all sorts of crazy props, probably like the prototype for the Sears portrait gallery, where you could hold like a giant pencil or something to show that you were literary. So he had like a mummy and a stuffed crocodile and all sorts of props. So Colonel Morse, sung by Carrington, knows that in order to get Wilde's status poppin', he needs to get his picture taken by Sarony. So the valet James, Colonel Morse Carrington, escort Wilde to Sarony's lair, and from that we see how his notoriety from these picture postcards that were distributed lead to marketing deals. So, Aperture.
With a right finessing, Wilde may be my Sarony, dancing for daughters, his image a ubiquity. But first he needs a photo by someone with a pedigree. One freak deserves another. We need Napoleon Sarony. Galton, daddy of eugenics, says that beauty's how evolution picks who gets scuttled and whose genetics stick. Wanna win the race, better have a face.
I pride myself on knowing nowadays I cannot do. And my humble pledge is that I'll make all of your dreams come true. If we son collect a Scotch, you will rock it heavenward. You speak volumes with a glance, as gams speak from those fancy hands. So I propose, then please, I can say, you please. If you don't want my face to bear, don't pitch on my camera boy. Oh, it's a piece of picture. You're the lord of language, but your image needs an overhaul. Then you love the discourse, not the lord of overall. Sing that your image needs a bird horse house and town. The world of my soul, strike a pause and freeze. 3 seconds in, you leave. If you don't want my face to bear, don't twitch. Whitman, Calvert, Clara Morris, Murray Dora, Gravel Town, your heart I provocate and Boss Tree, just in time. I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. Sarah Bernhardt, right back at ya. Loved your look as Cleopatra. Wilkie Collins, Evan Booth, F.C. Bangs, yea forsooth. Sissy Fitz's turvy topsy paints the town just like Hopsy. One-hit wonders, also bands. Yesterday's news, flashes in the pans. News for them all, that's for sure. Now smile for the aperture.
Sign autographs, I can run dry. Crowds will see my name there right. See their challenge is
Then freeze. 3 seconds in, you leave. If you don't want my face to laugh, don't twitch when my camera boy opens a piece of picture. Behold my gals and lads as the face of Oscar Wilde starts to launch 1,000 fans. A creative native child, if you sell a box without his face upon it, chances are the public will not want it. Take a puff on straight and stone cigars. He'll light your tip of the blazing stars. Hungry for a wild injection? Try Percy's aesthetic ice cream confection. Give us Oscar. And Eric Bro's department store. The finest hats were all invented, and the English Renaissance was fitly represented. Mount Fontaine's was a muta. Lift those bosoms frequent. With the large and story old you. Call you simply Choo Choo Choo. Strike a pose and freeze. 3 seconds in, you leave. If you don't want my face to laugh, don't twitch when my camera boy opens a piece of picture. Hold my hands and hands, as the Oscar Wilde starts to jazz, jazzy fans. Don't twitch when my camera boy opens a piece of picture.
So Wilde started to take off, and as I mentioned earlier, the only real work to his name at this point was a book of poems called Poems. And one of the most notorious of the poems was called Charmides, about a very horny Grecian guy who tries to get it on with a statue of Athena. I'm not recommending this, but that's what happened. The aesthetic movement particularly appealed to women because they wanted to have something to do in their homes, and the idea that you could create beauty and find an expression in the home was very appealing. And they also really liked to read his poems, which were kind of like the 50 Shades of Grey of their day. So in this next song, which is called Charmides, we'll meet Lucy and Jess and Cree, that in that order, who are our steamy book club fans. And another strange result of Oscar Wilde's presence in America was that a lot of novelty songs started to be produced. One of them was called Oscar Dear. And it was made popular by a singer called Erba Robeson, who was one of the great stars of Leadville, Colorado. And so Alex here will be singing a selection of the actual song rearranged and slightly deranged by Rachel. And Oscar Dear mashed up with our breathless book club gals, Charmides. So Oscar Dear, Charmides, take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here she is. Straight from a sold-out run in Leadville, Colorado. A diamond-bedecked chanteuse with nothing to lose. Let's give a big Helen and say welcome to Miss Erba Robeson.
I fell in love with a strange young man, a virgin rich and rare, of stature tall and lank, slim and long and curly hair, aesthetic to a great degree, in action sweet and mild, sublimely lank and nonchalant, but just a little wild.
I'm reading Charmides, Oscar Wilde's newest poem, just the most perverted tone, oily limbs and hot sea foam. I'm reading Charmides, that screeching voice seems awful cute, smuggling back that pulpy fruit, strutting in his lovely suit. Charmides, you make me frantic, says your seat is dripping wet. I think I need a cigarette.
Do you ever pass the Callion Man?
I'm reading Charmides, my husband has no interest, and some books I must confess are better read while you're undressed. You know I love my Joey, who knows when he lies driven slow. But you can seem to drive me where that Oscar Wilde can go.
Oscar dear, keep your hand away, sir. Someone might be looking love. Keep your hand away, sir. Oscar dear, keep your hand away, sir. Someone might be looking love. Keep your hand away, Oscar dear. Oscar dear.
He's taking off Athena's clothes from brow to bossy hills of snow. There's not a stitch left to expose.
Thought of nothing else but joy until just by my side I felt just something softly creep and gently there.
Charmides has fully pressed his hot flesh on her eyes. He pressed her, marble lips cannot protest.
That's illegal in the Middle West.
My darling Charmides, be wary of that monster's paw. Will overturn your frothed cup.
I'll leave you there to clean it up.
I love, not so. Rose and color has driven snow. But who can seem to drive me where that Oscar Wilde can go? Oscar, take your hand away. Surf's rising up, my friend. Her waters lift me. Read that part again.
And for our final number of the evening, oh, that's what we like to hear, we have what Wilde actually came to New York to do, which was his lecture at Chickering Hall, which used to stand at 18th Street and 5th Avenue. It's no longer there. It's across from the Banana Republic, though, if you want to do some sightseeing on your own time. So Oscar Wilde worked very hard at the last minute to write this speech, and he could tell that it wasn't going well, which we've tried to illustrate here, and then he hit his stride. So Carrington once again will be playing Colonel Morse, and Stephanie as Blythely will be singing Oscar Wilde in The New Renaissance.
I have the great honor to introduce to you Oscar Wilde, who will deliver to you his lecture on the English Renaissance.
Among the many debts which we owe to the supreme aesthetic faculties of literature is that he was the first to teach us to define beauty in terms the most concrete possible. To realize it, I mean always in its special manifestations. So, in this lecture which I have the honor to deliver before you, I will not try to give you any abstract definition of beauty, but rather to point out to you the general ideas which characterize the great English Renaissance of art in this century. Sold out 100 shows. I've sold out one that's quelque chose. Please don't judge the aesthetic view based on Gilbert's hullabaloo. The sun's might cannot be appraised by the dust caught in its rays, set as the compliment that is paid by mediocrity to what is great. And you can take the critic's part as the same test of any art, which shows the public no fealty. Its master is always beauty in all of its expressions. Dear me, it's not for the faint of heart. You dare fall apart, can you live like a poet, turning pain to pleasure? individuality is a beacon in a stormy sea. La personalité voilà, c'est qui nous sauvera. We all walk through open doors, unlocked by legends come before. Swinburne would not have a prayer had there been no Baudelaire, and without John Rustic's praise, where are Rossetti and Millet, and there never was a Keats without Hellenistic beauty in all of its expressions. Dear me, it's not for the faint of heart. Do you dare fall apart? Can you live like a poet, turning pain to pleasure? Dearly, adorning its crown with scorn, grief will give